Welcome, readers, to the third in a series of 4 weekly talks on the 2021 Summer Read Selection, You Belong by Sebene Selassie. Hello, I'm Ryan Banker, Adult Services Manager at Guthrie Memorial Library. WellSpan Health, WITF's Transforming Health, Capital Blue Cross, and 80 libraries throughout the central Pennsylvania region are in collaboration for this year's Summer Read program. We welcome the YMCA of York as a program partner this year. Selassie, through research and storytelling, reassures us that we do belong, even though at times we may feel disconnected. She offers suggestions for us to move back to a place where we will all feel that we belong. This evening's topic is You Belong Because You Matter, and So Do They. We will have 2 presentations, followed by a discussion session. Attendees will be muted during the presentation. You're welcome to put your questions and comments in the chat. We will be sure to share them after both speakers. We will unmute during the Q&A afterwards if you want to ask your questions verbally.
Good evening. I'm Susan Nensteel, branch manager at Kreitz Creek Library in Pelham, York County. I'm excited to share with you that Kreitz Creek Library is getting ready to open a new library in October, and it's located right next door to our current library on Walnut Springs Road in Pelham Township. The topic for this evening's program, You Belong Because You Matter, and So Do They, explores finding joy through acceptance and diversity. Our presenters are Kim Brister, who is the Vice President, Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer, WellSpan Health, and Jose Santiago, Director of YMCA New American Welcoming Center. Welcome, Kim. Welcome, Jose.
Thank you.
Kim Brister leads the organizational strategy to build a diverse workforce and advance an inclusive workplace. With over 30 years of experience in human resources, Kim is recognized as a subject matter expert in executive level recruitment, employee relations, regulatory compliance, training and development, and diversity and inclusion. Kim was recently honored with the Central Penn Business Journal's Women of Influence 2021 Award and the Diversity Impact Award, which is one of the annual Spirit of Yoko Awards from the York County Economic Alliance. We'd like to welcome Kim as our first presenter.
Good evening. And again, my name is Kim Brister. My chosen pronouns are she, her, and hers. And I'm really happy to be here tonight to talk about belonging. You matter, and so do they. As we begin our time together today, we're going to focus and lean into our own lived experiences. We all have them, and they really influence the way that we interact with one another. You know, empathy is another area that we all need to be able to explore as we connect with one another, and then moving on to acceptance, valuing those differences that really create such a uniqueness in our culture and in our world, and then spotlighting the lived experience. Jose will lean into and talk about, you know, the lived experience of the Latino American, and then, you know, we'll focus on a little bit of our path forward. So as I just stated, you know, lived experiences, you know, my story, your story, and then our story together. I often think about, you know, my own story and just experiences that I've had throughout my life where, you know, the differences really did create challenges with building meaningful relationships. But then I can also say that, you know, those experiences in some instances really created a unity and friendships across different cultures. And I think being able to build those relationships with others different from you really can open your eyes to situations and being able to learn about different cultures, and then it can really help enrich your own life. I think about, you know, a little later here, I'll tell a story about early in my career where a young lady and I did not necessarily see eye to eye, and I didn't know why until she told me her story. And so it's I've built my career and my life around giving people the space to tell me their story. And also tried to create relationships where people could ask openly questions about my story so that we really could build our story together. So as we move forward, many times I'm sure as you listen here, you have the one, the dismissive listening and then the empathetic listening, and that empathetic listening is really where you're trying to understand what is that person, what's the true message, what's behind that. I always talk about meeting people where they are. As I lead teams, I really listen to try and understand and meet people where they are and not listen to respond, but really listen to understand. And sometimes it could just be silence. And sometimes it can be, where they truly just need a listening ear. Where on the other side with dismissive listening, you want to be able to fix it. And I can tell you, I've been this person too, where I want to fix it. I want to be the person to help this person work through whatever. And I've tried once again to build relationships where individuals have been able to tell me. Specifically, I've had team members who have said, Kim, I feel like you're listening to respond instead of listening to understand. And I've had team members who have said, hey, Kim, I just need you, because they know what my tendency can be at times. It was, hey, Kim, I just need you to listen and help me work through this. And so when you're able to really build those strong relationships, people begin to be able to tell you how you just need to show up for them instead of being a fixer or once again listening to respond. And that's where I think those meaningful relationships really begin to bridge, when you're really able to focus in and listen and understand how you can show up for this person instead of assuming what you need to do or actually telling your own story, which can sometimes minimize the other person's story when they're trying to share with you, and can shut down that meaningful connection. And Sabine, I think it's Sebene. I don't know the exact pronunciation of the author's first name, but in the book You Belong, she talks about setting ground rules in meetings and discussion groups, and being able to recognize that sometimes we can get into discussions and we need to be able to focus in on impact versus intent. And sometimes that intent, regardless, it can be unintentional, but it can still be hurtful. And therefore being able to set those ground rules and for individuals who are in these discussions to recognize that at times to be intentional about the words that they say, the words that they choose, and how they choose to show up in that particular session. And that's where these communication strategies can really come into play. So as we move forward and we talk about, really welcome to acceptance, enjoy the journey, respecting similarities and differences. The fact that, if everyone was just like me, it would be a pretty boring world. Being able to have individuals in your lives that can enrich that and give you a space to learn about different cultures and backgrounds only makes the world a better place. Even when you think about organizations, and of course, I work in a rather large organization, and we constantly talk about the fact that when you're able to respect those similarities and differences and enable people to show up and bring their whole selves to work, just how much more productive you can be as an organization. We talk about having 20,000 problem solvers, but if a good percentage of those individuals do not feel that their thoughts or that their similarities or even their differences are accepted, how do you really get those individuals to help you achieve your organizational strategies and goals? Not allowing our past to limit us. So this is a space where I like to be able to tell a story because it weaves in not allowing our past to limit us. Understanding one's own fear can lead to better outcomes. Early in my 20s, I worked at an orthopedic office, and I was the only person of color in that office. And primarily, I got along with everyone except one person. And because I would say I like to be a pleaser, it really bothered me that this young lady did not want to interact with me, and I couldn't figure out why. So one day I was brave enough to ask her, Why, what is it? Did I say something to offend you? I wanted to be able to fix it. Once again, being that fixer, I wanted to be able to fix it. What did I do? What did I say something to offend? And her response was, you're nothing like what my father told me you would be. So in that moment, I was thinking, I don't think I ever met your dad. When did that happen? And she said, no, 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 it isn't that. It's what he told me Black people would be. And every single adjective that she used to describe what he shared with her, Black people were, it created this fear in her. And so she didn't believe that I was trustworthy. And I talk about affirmation bias. She was also looking for me to affirm what her father had shared. And I wasn't any of those things. And through that conversation, I also learned that I was the first person of color that she had ever worked with in her 20 some years. So that interaction and being able to kind of break down and really the fear, she was fearful of me. And, I'm like, I'm 5 feet tall. I mean, I can't create, too much damage here. But by the same token, it was what she thought she would encounter by interacting with me. And I was contrary to that. But the sad thing is if I exhibited at least one of those behaviors that her father had told her, she would have thought that of every person of color. And that's the challenge when we lump individuals, and then also recognizing, I had a conversation with someone else about the fact that in current times, it just feels like if you don't agree with someone, that automatically creates a barrier. And in today's times, as we know, things can get volatile pretty quickly and pretty easily. But it doesn't mean that just because we don't agree that we can't still meet a common ground. And sometimes it's just we see things differently. We have different lived experiences, and being able just to appreciate people where they are really can help bring down those barriers that we can have from having meaningful relationships with one another, along with suspending judgment and recognizing that acceptance, being able just to accept people and being able just to accept people where they are is really a gift that just keeps giving back to us if we can get to that space. So when you think about valuing diversity, it informs new and different perspectives. I had a situation, I, like I said, been in the workforce for quite some time, and I had a situation at another organization who had a large Asian population, and I loved sitting down and learning about the cultures. And anytime I have someone new on my team or just individuals I interact with, I love being able to learn about different cultures. And I was sitting and having a conversation with one of our factory team members, and I used the wrong term. I was trying to be respectful and used the term Oriental instead of Asian. And she quickly shared with me that term was offensive, and explained to me that Oriental was a piece of furniture, an inanimate object, and that Oriental did not refer to people. And I so appreciate it. Once again, being able to build that relationship, being able to value those differences, and being able to build this common respect for one another enabled her to educate me, even though I was offensive in that moment. She showed me grace and helped me learn how to be a better person. And that's where that richness comes from. And even from that point on, one of the gifts that she always liked to bestow were spring rolls. So I had spring rolls for months, and being able to be invited to family events and things of that nature. That moment did not break all the should I say, equity that we built in our friendship up to that point. Minimizes, valuing diversity minimizes discrimination. When you really are able to value and I say be conscious of your unconscious bias, it can really help minimize discrimination that sometimes takes place because of a lack of knowledge. Valuing diversity grants acceptance. Just recognizing that just because we're not the same doesn't mean that we can't still build a strong relationship together. Eliminates those blind spots, increases productivity and efficiency. I talked about that a little bit earlier. And then it unites efforts to improve the world. the United States is, we talk about it being the melting pot, but it doesn't really meld well together if we're not being able to respect, the differences that we bring to the table, or recognizing that just because we may not have the same cultural background, or practice the same religion, or speak the same language, that we don't still add value to our communities and to our organizations, and even to the relationships that we have. So being able to value that diversity only enriches our worldview. And the author of the book, You Belong, really talks about being able to just be in the moment, and once again, just accept individuals for where they are in the space that they're in, and also just being able to live life to the fullest, and finding joy in the rich tapestry of our country, and just the relationships that we may come across, and actually to seek them out, to seek relationships with individuals who can teach us in areas that we may not be informed, and be curious about the individuals that you encounter, so that you can enrich your own life, hopefully enrich your own life. I'm going to hand off to my colleague, Jose Santiago, at this point.
So hello, everyone. So I have, unfortunately, I have a favorite author, and I added her to here because she really has a lot of experience in this DEI work, and in the Latino connection and Latino experience in the world, which when people look at the Latino experience, they think you Latinos come from all over the world. Puerto Ricans come from Puerto Rico. They're not immigrants, but people still sometimes refer to them as immigrants because they don't know any better. But studies show that millions believe they are not perceived nor treated as Americans. And for those that don't know, we have North America, we have South America, and we have the United States, which is the America. So when you talk about Latinos Latinos from South America, and you don't call and you say, "Oh, I'm from the United States, I'm from America," it's very offensive because they are from the Americas too. They're from South America, and North Americans are from North America. So they're all from an America. So that's one of the things. Did something just happen to us? Did I do something? Oh.
We still hear you, Jose.
Oh, something happened over here. My screen kind of disappeared. Anyway, so I just this is one of those things that I like to share, because people always perceive, us to be the only Americans, or from the only Americas in the world, and we're not. There's South America and there's North America. So when you talk to people from different places of the world and they're from South and North America, they'll get offended when you say, "Hey, I'm from the United States, I'm from America." They'll be very offended because they're from Americas too. They're just from South America and North America. So that's just one of the things that thing. And then Latinos, unfortunately for many reasons, whether it be racism or whether it be just not understanding, not being educated, not understanding that the islands, the island of Puerto Rico, and many of the other islands around it, Vieques and all the other islands, are all part of the United States. So sometimes there's some misunderstandings just due to education, that people understand that they are from the United States, they are part of the United States, they're Americans also. We don't need a passport to go back and forth from Puerto Rico to Pennsylvania, or Puerto Rico to the United States. But obviously we still have some people that don't understand it. And it's not a bad thing, because getting educated is a good thing, and especially in different cultures. Latino cultures are also very family oriented. They're very tight knit. So to learn about their culture, you have to become part of that niche. You have to build that relationship with them and get close to them, because they're really close people. They take care of their own. I don't know. One example is you can go to many senior citizens homes around here in Pennsylvania and across the United States. You're not going to find many Latinos, grandparents or uncles or aunts, or in those situations, because Latinos like to keep their home, keep people of their elders in their home. They like to take care of their elders. So you'll find Latino families have more than one adult in the household. They usually have 2, 3, 4 adults in the household. Usually it's a mother, a father, a grandmother, a grandfather, could be an uncle, an aunt. So as they age, the households might get larger versus getting smaller. And a lot of people don't understand that. Why there's so many people in that house? It's because that's part of that culture. That's part of the Latino culture. They take care of their own. They don't like to let nobody else take care of their own. They take care of their own. They're really tight. Families are really tight. We click to the next slide. This is my author, Nelda Flores Gomez, and I'm telling you, if you look into her and you read some of the stuff she puts out there, it's really interesting. It's really educating. Hispanic, her research that Hispanics were born between 1981 and 1986 are viewed as different types of Americans, but not viewed as Americans. And that's kind of what I was talking about. They weren't, because some of the things that happened with the different cultures coming from the Eastern Europe and the different places, everybody assumed that if you weren't Eastern European of pale skin, that you weren't American. And especially if you were from other countries, whether it be Asian countries, South America, Latin America, Spain, any other country, people just assumed that they weren't American. So that's kind of what happened to Latinos. So Latinos decided to come up with their own way of identifying to make sure people understand they were American. I think it's on the next slide. Well, it's not, but that's okay. Minimizing the resurgence of nativism and political engagement. Well, some of that is part of what I'm talking about. So Latinos, one of the things that Puerto Ricans and Latinos did in general was they found other ways to make people understand how they are American. So a lot of times it was, I don't need a passport, or I am a U.S. citizen, but I'm from Puerto Rico, but I'm a U.S. citizen, and I was born and raised in Allentown. And you can't say I'm not American because I'm from Puerto Rico, but I was born in Allentown and I just travel back and forth to Puerto Rico. There's many excuses that they use, and they're not really excuses. They're just trying to identify, and everybody else thinks they're excuses. So one of the things we need to do is understand the different cultures, understand where they come from, and understand that the Puerto Rican culture are Americans, and that people need to understand that and be educated on that. One of the things that I've seen in my experience is we always get kind of grouped in with all the Latino cultures, especially the Mexican culture and some of the cultures from South America. And the one I had a group that I met with. They were from somewhere in southern Pennsylvania, but they wanted to talk to me about converting in their church, helping understand what the Latino culture was. Why do Latinos come to the United States? Why do Latinos come to the United States to take their jobs? These are the type of questions they were asking. And my explanation to that is Latinos came here to make a better life, just like anybody else. Puerto Rico and many other countries are suffering, obviously, from political agendas, from storms, hurricanes, everything else that happens in some of these South American countries where there's not enough funding or money to take care of them, or jobs or anything else. So they come to the United States to make a better life for themselves. And when they do that, they don't want to chum off the Section 8 or any of the other things. But when they come here, they want to survive, to get their families stable. And a lot of them work through the process. They either go back to school or get a better job, buy a home, and all that. But in doing that process, sometimes there's some discrimination. There's some things that happen that are roadblocks, as we all know. The roadblocks are real. Roadblocks are real. The questions are when you go apply for a job is, are you documented? Is that a question you ask? No, it probably shouldn't be. But that's one of the questions asked. Do you have documentation? Are you from the United States? Or were you born and raised here? But a lot of people aren't. We're born in Puerto Rico. We're born in South America. We're born in all these countries. And when we come here, we usually don't. Very few people cross the border to come to the United States illegally. It's a perception that this is a huge amount of people that come to the United States illegally. It's not true. It's not true. Yes, there are people that come here illegally. We know that, but it's a small percentage of the people that try to come to the border, try to come into the United States to make a better life for themselves. One of the things that you can hear from a lot of South American and people that come here is that United States, regardless of the agenda, regardless of what's going on politically, they think it's the best place in the world to come and live a better life and make a better life for you and your family. When you think about that and everything that's happened in the past couple of years with what happened in the White House, what's going on with racism and all the things that are going on in this community, in these different communities, people still think that this is the best place to come in the world to make a better life for themselves. When you think about that, that's powerful. That's powerful. That says something about the United States. It says something about the people in this country. And, you know, they call it a land of immigrants. They call the United States a land where this is a land of immigrants. That was another phrase that Latinos use to make themselves feel welcome. Yes, we are a land of immigrants. Very few people that are from this land, very few. The Native Indians were the original people on this land, and obviously their land got taken from them. They got pushed into reserves and down into other areas of the Americas. But very few people here are actual Native Americans. There's probably not a single one on this call. So it's just some of the things we talk about. Nativism is political engagement, through political engagement and other venues that we try to change the way we talk about things, the way we share things, so we can feel more welcome as Latinos and Puerto Ricans. We just try to change the narrative to basically it's making excuses where we shouldn't have to. If you get anything out of it, it's understanding that a lot of the cultures that in the United States are here because they want to make a better life for themselves, they want to make a better life for their families, and they want to feel welcome. So the New America Welcome Center is a part of this world work. This is not just work in Pennsylvania. This is work across the United States. There are 18 welcome centers in the cohort, and this is the work we do: bridge building, bringing people together to learn about each other's cultures, so they understand who lives in their neighborhoods, and they understand and make them feel better, make them feel welcome because they understand their culture, they're sharing culture. We don't want to acculturate people who come into our neighborhoods. We want to join the cultures together, bring them together to learn about each other, to make a better neighborhood, to make a better community culture, to make better relationships in the community. So that's what it's all about. A lot of the cultures that are here in York come from, I think we're up to like 60 some odd countries that are here locally, that are represented here locally. There's well over 70 in Pennsylvania total. So when you think about it, there is a lot of cultures in the community. So bridge building activities to ensure that people recognize, especially leaders, people who make decisions in the community. They usually make them for the Black, brown, and Latino and Puerto Rican community, but they don't make them for the Asian community, for the Haitian community, for the South, North African community, Egyptian community, Iranians. I mean, there's so many different communities here that we don't look at when we're talking about making decisions. So that's where it's so important for me as a Welcome Center director to ensure that we highlight these communities so people understand when they're making decisions about where the sidewalks need to be replaced, when they're making decisions about the parks and buildings that need to be accessible to everybody, that they're accessible to all that live in this community. I don't think we do enough to make sure that happens. So some of the stuff, can we go to the next slide, please? It's so important to think about this phrase here. Your individuality is important, but so is belonging. Recognizing parts of your culture that have shaped your past and the parts that you want to carry with you into the future. And as a Latino man, I think about this all the time. You know, what has held me back in the past, but what has moved me forward? Some of it's being strong, some of it's being very direct with people, some of it's being honest with people, telling them straight to their face, you know, I don't care what you think about me, but I'm doing it. I'm doing what I'm going to do because this is where I want to go and this is where I want to be. Understanding the culture is something that has to be learned by individuals in the community. If you don't understand the culture, you don't understand the people that live around you, shame on you. You know, you need to know the people that live around you because you never know when you're going to need the help of somebody who lives across the street from you that might be from another country, another race, whatever that may be. You never know when that person might need to come across the street and save you, or you might need to go save them. Either way, you need to know who lives around you. And that's how you build community. You build community by learning who's in your neighborhoods, by learning who the kids that play in your neighborhoods, by understanding who's there, so you can protect your neighborhood. Because a lot of times, when I was growing up, great example was we lived in York City, in our neighborhood, in our block. We were a myriad of different cultures in our neighborhood, but we all knew each other. We all knew each other. The parents knew each other. We knew when the lights came down that all the parents would be at the door telling the kids to get inside. We knew if somebody came in the neighborhood that didn't belong, somebody would question it. So we protected our kids. We protected our neighborhood. It's the same thing when you have different cultures and different ethnicities and different people in your neighborhood. You want to know them. You want to know who they are. I mean, you don't have to know them personally and have pie and cake every day, but you need to at least know who they are and at least respect who they are and make them feel welcome in the neighborhood. I mean, it's what it is. I know that there's plenty of neighborhoods around here where people move in and the neighbors bring, they bring bread or they bring pie. That should happen in every neighborhood. That shouldn't just happen in a white affluent neighborhood or all Latino neighborhood or wherever the case may be. It should happen everywhere. So ensuring that you look at your parts of your past as every individual. You just don't have to be an individual culture. Every individual here, look at your past and look at your future. If in the past you've been negative to people of other cultures, or you've been, or you've said, I'm not dealing with that person because he's of another race and I'm not putting up with that. Look at that and then look into your future. Hey, I want to change that. I want to be part of what's going on in my neighborhood. I want to be part of what's going on with families here. I want to help people thrive in my own community, in my neighborhoods. That's where this phrase comes in. You think about that and you say, this is how I can help. This is how I can move forward. Let's go to the next slide. I know I'm taking up a lot of time. So this slide here is kind of yours, ain't it?
Yeah, it is, Jose, but I think it really speaks to all that you were just talking about, a moment ago, about being curious and opening your mind. That's exactly what you were just talking about, being curious, being vulnerable, giving of yourself and giving to others, educating about other cultures, right? And sometimes education is simply a conversation. I was reading, I think it was in the book as well, but or article I was reading saying gentleman, took a Uber ride with a gentleman from Venezuela, and he said in 30 minutes he learned more about that culture than what he learned in school. So it's really just being curious about other people and then taking the time sometimes just to educate yourself. I always say, listen, believe, and learn. Listen, open your heart, your mind. You just said it, leave your house, go and introduce, be willing to give of yourself and expand your network into other communities. And then respect the right of others to have a viewpoint different from your own. We're not always going to see eye to eye, but that doesn't mean that we need to be adversarial towards one another. We can perhaps just learn to really have some healthy discourse, in order to be able to get to that other side. And then, remember, we all belong. In the beginning of the book, I just want to read something that's in the front cover of the book, and I loved it. It said, "To belong is to experience joy in any moment, to feel pleasure, dance in public, accept death, forgive what seems unforgivable, and to extend kindness to yourself and to others. To belong is also to acknowledge injustice, reckon with history, and face our own shadows." And that was in the front cover of the book, You Belong. I think those words ring so true. And if you go to the next slide, Brene Brown is one of my favorite authors. And she says, belonging doesn't require us to change who we are. It requires us to be who we are. So being able to stand in your own truth and being able to accept others who are standing in theirs is what belonging is about. And I want to thank the library for inviting Jose and I here today, to share just our own experiences and our thoughts on the fact that, you belong, I belong, and we all belong.
Well, thank you both. Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Jose, for your interesting information. You've given me some food for thought. And right now, what we're going to do is unmute everyone for a question and answer session. And if anyone has any questions, you can go ahead and just raise your hand and or type them in the chat. We'll be happy to collect those. And maybe while we're waiting, Jose, I know that you are director of the New American Welcome Center, but I have to confess, I do not know much about that organization and how you welcome people to our community, people who are not native to our community,
I could talk a little bit about it. So the Welcome Centers is a national it's a program. It's the program started back in 2008 in New York. They have a Welcome Center there that's about a $2.7 million budget, 18 locations. It's huge, but it's all part of the YMCA cohort. You have to be a DIC YMCA to be, which is Diversity, Inclusion, and Global YMCA, to have a New American Welcome Center, to become a Welcome Center. So the Welcome Center basically is a way to help communities and help immigrants, receiving communities, and newcomers come into the community, find resources, find ways to learn about the community and feel more welcome in the community. So a lot of what I do is I provide direct services through the YMCA, referral services through partnerships in the community, and bridge building activities, which I did a lot of before COVID. Obviously, we did a lot of bridge building activities in the community to highlight the different communities in York, so that people understand who lives with them and that people understand the different cultures. So we, like this year, we're working on Welcome Week. Welcome Week is September 10th to the 19th, and every day we're hosting something different. We're hosting one-on-one immigration. We're hosting so people understand misconceptions of immigrants and immigration and some of the laws. We're also hosting a couple of fairs with different cultures in the community within York and Lancaster. We're hosting an interfaith panel to discuss how immigrants, the different faiths, even the non-believers, work with immigrants to help them feel welcome in the community. And there's many other things that we do. In the past, I've had concerts with Egyptian a musician. I've done virtually. I've done many panels with different cultures, asking questions, bringing the community in, bringing leaders in the community to understand the different cultures that are in the community. And I've done some art galleries that are representative of different immigrants that live here in York that are actually artists. We have quite a few. It's just things like that. Just the Welcome Center is here to just kind of help the community, welcome people, ensure that they don't fall through the gaps in services whenever possible. It still happens, but we try to mitigate somehow to try to get these people to services, and then to help our immigrants to navigate the system. As you know, everybody's lived in York. Even people who've lived in here forever have sometimes trouble navigating the system of care, the system of services. So you can only imagine when somebody comes into this community that doesn't know the community, how they perceive our system and try to navigate it. So having somebody that can help them through that process is really important, and that's where the New American Welcome Center comes in. Just trying to ensure they're connected to services, trying to ensure they're connected to organizations that are doing some of the work, that understand their culture and things like that. So it's a massive overhead look, but you can overview, but you can kind of figure out what it is we're trying to do. We're just trying to provide some services and some direct services and referrals, and utilize all the services that are actually here in York, nonprofits and services that are here that are underutilized anyway.
Well, that's wonderful. If someone wanted to learn more about the Welcome Week, where would they go to?
So you can go to the YMCA of York .org website. You can go under the New American Welcome Center on that website, or you could just look at there's usually our marketing team usually posts stuff out there every day. Soon you'll see there should be a whole schedule for Welcome Week coming out here within the next week, before the end of the week probably, that'll be on that website. So once that comes up, then everybody will be able to see the scheduled dates for York and Lancaster events.
Thank you very much. I think one of the things I love about York, I'm not originally from York, but have called York my home for over 30 years, is the ethnic festivals. And I have to say, I think food is the way to reach people. And so when I go to these excuse me, different festivals and try some new things, what has happened is I incorporate that food into my own repertoire of things that I cook. So I think that's a nice way to be able to reach out to people is share dishes from your family, from your background, from your culture. So that's
Awesome. So when's dinner?
yeah, that needs to come next, right? So that's yeah. Unfortunately, COVID has put a bit of a crimp in my practice to go and do that over the summer holidays, summer weather. Are there
a lot of my programs last year were virtual because of COVID, obviously. And there might be some going back to COVID this year, back to virtual this year, because obviously we're starting to struggle with the pandemic again. So
I think Jose, we're going to need to start something with the library system to share a recipe a week or something that we can all try each other's foods from the variety of cultures that you said now live in your county. So I think that would be a really neat thing to do.
I know I've worked with the Martin Library quite a bit in the last 3 or 4 years to put on programs. This year they actually canceled their program due to COVID. We had a program planned, but they just canceled due to COVID, which I understand. I mean, I have no problem with it. But maybe there's something we could do virtually, with them. Been trying to talk to Mina to try to see if we can come up with something that we can do virtually.
That sounds good. I'm gonna put a plug in for food, something to do with food, even if we have to cook it ourselves. So.
Yeah, a video of cooking something authentic from another country is awesome. Then you can replay it over and over again through Welcome.
That's right. That's right.
Hey, it's Abby. I had a question.
Thank you.
It's just more so looking for some advice for people who come from a very small kind of a town that have everyone that you grew up with looked like you didn't have experience of being around a lot of different cultures. And maybe the first experience that you have is when you go to college or when you work in a large company and you're starting to work with different cultures that you've not been around. So either Kim or Jose or both, what would you recommend for those people that are hesitant when they first start coming out of that comfort zone, I guess, for lack of a better word, where everyone looks like me, sounds like me, talks like me, thinks like me, to kind of start doing that and learning more? What can you give as advice for a first step in coming out of that?
Personally, I'd say you coming out of your comfort zone would be coming to the communities where these people are at and building trust of yourself that you can be there and be safe. There's the perception is that if you the perception, and I'm just being honest, the perception is you're going to be unsafe. You're going to feel unsafe around these people. So the fact that there's fairs, there's festivals, there's all kind of events that happen for different cultures in the community. That's one of the places where you can come and say, okay, and start meeting people where they're at and start learning about cultures and people. I do have a Latino culture presentation that I actually have that I do. And if you have a group of people that wants that to learn about specifics about the different Latino cultures, I can share that with a group of people anytime. We can do it virtually, whatever. I do have a presentation that I do, and I've done it with the Revolution, with all their employees. I've done it with many other organizations. It's just, I've done it for Leadership York and others. So it's just a presentation that gives you an outlook of what the Latino community is, what the perceptions are, what the misconceptions are, and things like that. So it really helps kind of guide you, because obviously York and York City and York County, we have a lot of Latino cultures here. It's the largest culture outside of all the other cultures is Latino culture. So if you get that, you learn a little bit about it, that might help you get out there and be able to start conversations and build some relationships. And then maybe it'll get you into many other cultures, because every culture has their own identity. Every culture has their own slang. Every culture has their own beliefs. So it's hard to understand sometimes, with the different cultures. So this presentation, I do kind of helps you guide that through the Latino cultures.
I think, Abby, another thing is, especially when you're talking about in like the work environment, is, once again, just, start by building just genuine relationships with individuals and building trust. And through that trust, then many times you can kind of ask questions that you're curious about, that you're trying to learn about. Of course, read podcasts, things of that nature can give you that exposure too. But, from my own personal experience, it's been just genuinely interested in learning about somebody else. And most people are more than happy to share when they really believe that you're genuinely interested in learning about their culture and about them, as a person. I've never had anybody shut me down when I've just said, hey, I'm just really curious. I just love to hear, certain things. And they've been willing to tell me their whole life story, from that perspective, just from really, like I said, genuinely asking questions and wanting and being curious and being respectful about that curiosity as well.
99% of judgment when you walk up to somebody is usually their body language. If you have body language and you walk up to somebody that says, I'm a happy person, I really love who I am, and all that, the person across from you is going to feel the same way. But if you walk up to somebody and you look like you just lost your pet, it's probably not going to work out too well for you. You know what I mean? So culture, all the cultures are like that. I mean, if you're a happy, jolly person, you love to talk, you love to have conversations, people from other cultures, even if they don't understand everything you're saying, they'll start a conversation with you. It's a matter of just building that trust and believing that you genuinely want to listen to them, that you genuinely want to talk to them, that you genuinely want to learn from them. So it's the conversation. I know a lot of people say, well, I don't speak Spanish and I don't look Latino, so there's no way I can build that relationship. That's not true.
It's not true. Yeah.
That's not true at all. That's a misconception. That's one of those misconceptions, that you have to be Latino to serve somebody, that you have to be Latino to work with somebody. Not saying that you don't want to have people that look like the people you serve in your organizations, but that's not how you build a relationship. A relationship can be built just by trust and believing and listening and wanting and being genuine.
I have a comment. This is Karen. Years ago, we had an author here named Mary Pfeiffer, and Mary wrote several books about different cultures and them coming into America and what we do to help them. She called on people on everybody here to become cultural agents. And she said, you're really just helping them with things that maybe they've never even seen or heard of before. And she gave some examples, like these gentlemen from Africa, and she's in Lincoln, Nebraska. Well, they had no idea what ice was. They walk outside and they're just falling all over the place and just didn't even have a clue. And she said that there's just simple things that we take for granted, that we know and that we do, that we can share with new people in our neighborhoods and be part of that welcoming committee.
I would agree, Karen. I remember a couple of years ago, I was living and in an apartment building, and I came outside, and there was a young Asian couple out there, and had just snowed. It was a major snowstorm, and they had a spatula. They had never seen a shovel before, so they had a spatula, and I was like, that is not, and they didn't speak a lot of English, but to your point, it was, explaining what a shovel was, offered, to shovel them out and take them to Walmart to get a shovel, but it was just, through a snowstorm, once again, building a friendly relationship with a young couple who had never seen snow before. So, it wasn't watching them struggle. It was going over and saying, how can I help?
All right, very good discussion. Do we have any more questions or comments? All right. If not, thank you everyone for participating. Stay tuned for next Thursday's program, You Belong, the Beginning and the End. This topic explores being present at later stages of life and death. The presenters will be Roberta Geidner, Program Manager, and Eve Gardner, Program Coordinator of Horizon Planning, Advanced Care Planning, and Continuing Care at WellSpan Health, followed by an introduction to postpartum and death doulas with Michelle Leffler, Deborah Tuskar, and Morgan Barnsley. Please note, You Belong With Us, an in-person event, was to be held on Thursday, September 2nd at Dover Community Center. This self-care event is now postponed due to the rising number of COVID cases in our area.
Please copy the link that will soon be available in the chat so that you can complete the reader survey and be entered in a drawing for the opportunity to meet the author and receive an autographed copy of her book, You Belong, when Sebene Selassie visits our area on Monday, October 11th. Thank you once again to WellSpan Health, WITF's Transforming Health, Capital Blue Cross, the YMCA of York, and the 80 libraries throughout Central Pennsylvania region who helped make this program possible. Thank you, a special thank you to our presenters this evening, Kim Brister and Jose Santiago. You did a fine job, and I'm grateful for the information you shared. Good night, everyone. Stay well and stay connected to your library.